it's finally here. All of us retro RPG freaks have waited so patiently for a long time, but now we have it. Ever since Nintendo unveiled their announcement trailer for Octopath Traveler 2, I've been tracking the game closely. I've gotten so pumped up over what I expect to be Square Enix's latest HD 2D masterpiece. So now that it's officially released, I've been spending the last days experiencing it for myself, and I wanted to give you all the scoop on it. And I just have to admit, as time led up to this point, I created a list of checkboxes in my head. Does it live up to the hype, or is it just a reskin of the original? What's this day-night system we keep hearing about? And perhaps most importantly, does it push the series forward in fun and innovative ways? I'll answer all of these questions about Octopath Traveler 2 in this video. Before I get into that, please like, subscribe, and click the bell below for future retro gaming content from yours truly. Now, let's dive into Octopath Traveler 2. As its name implies, Octopath Traveler 2 gives us 8 new protagonists with 8 different stories in 8 different settings. They're the focal point of the entire game. Hikari is a warrior and prince of the country of Ku, where ceaseless war has plagued his people. Driven from his hometown, he sets off to find his former comrade in arms and end the bloodshed for good. Agnia is a dancer from the Leaflands with big dreams of stardom. She seeks to bring great joy to others just as her mother did before her. Ochette is a hunter on Totohaha Island and lives alongside her fellow beastlings. After learning of an impending calamity, she sets off with her fox Akala and owl Mahina to search for help. Temnos is a cleric from the mountainous Crestlands, where a tragic incident turns his world upside down. The event leaves more questions than answers, so he sets out to solve the mystery behind it. As a member of the Black Snakes, Throne is a thief from the bustling Brightlands. After so much time spent stealing and cleaning, she becomes disenchanted by the cycle of violence and yearns for freedom. Casti is an apothecary with amnesia from the port town of the Harborlands. As she cares for the well-being of others, she follows a trail of clues in an attempt to discover her identity. And then there's my 2 favorites, Oswald and Partitio. Oswald is a scholar filled with a thirst for vengeance after being wrongly sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his wife and daughter. In the bitter, snow-covered Winterlands, he plots his revenge. Partitio is a free-spirited merchant who aspires to make the world a better place for the less fortunate. In the process, he betrays some expectations of his profession. In terms of the story, each character has a fairly structured narrative with key plot points. That being said though, Octopath Traveler 2 also gives the player the freedom to make certain important choices that push the narrative in slightly different directions. For instance, you have the full liberty to choose who Throne confronts after learning a terrible revelation that involves multiple bad actors. In the same way, when you play through Ochette's story, you have to choose which animal companion to take along with her. These decisions are all up to you, and the story plays out differently depending on your choices. In addition to this, there's also crossover scenes where travelers meet each other. I think the branching paths and the crossover scenes make quite clear that the developers made a much more conscious effort to connect the stories together, even if only in minor ways. That was something many players clamored for, so I can see why they made these changes. Now, if there's anything that captures the spirit of this game best, it has to be the graphics. The visuals in Octopath Traveler 2 are even better than those in the first game, and that was a super impressive feat in 2018 as it is now. Just take a look at these landscapes, they're absolutely amazing. Story sequences are often enhanced by a panning camera that brings the size of the world into view in a noticeable way, and I couldn't get enough of it. And even the environmental effects are striking. The shimmer of the water, raindrops in the night, sunlight shining upon towns, and snow falling from the sky all look absolutely phenomenal. Octopath Traveler 2 utilizes the same HD 2D graphical engine the original so famously popularized. The classic character sprites look straight out of a 16-bit or 32-bit retro RPG, complete with their own individual styles and awesome scene-specific animations. So this pretty much confirms that I was born for this game. As far as I'm concerned, the style is perfect. It's almost as if a movie director wrote these scenes. It's kind of hard to explain other than to say it's cinematic. Even the start screen is beautiful too. It transitions between all the travelers and the main parts of their lives, and it really captures the essence of the game and its visual greatness well. And you have to admit that it really says something about a game when even its start screen is so enjoyable. One major enhancement to the world of Octopath Traveler 2 is the inclusion of building walk-ins. In the first game, it was pretty unimaginative because you just conversed with NPCs standing in front of shops to view their wares. But in this one, you can actually go inside the buildings themselves. They aren't just standard boilerplate rooms either, they're completely tailored to the scenario you're in. Just as we all expected, combat is fully turn-based, and your party can have up to 4 members. The break system from the first game is still completely intact here. And if you're not sure what that is, it's basically a mechanic that puts an enemy into a weakened state when you exploit its weaknesses. So after you use attacks corresponding to those weaknesses, the enemy becomes broken. This means it can't attack at all for a round, and all of your attacks do much more damage to it. The boost system is back too, and that allows you to spend a limited number of boost points to enhance the power of your next action. I found it especially fun to use to unleash the full potential of your most powerful abilities. If you manage to combine enemy breaks with your own boost, you can really amplify your damage to an absurd degree. It's kind of like waiting for the stars to align at times, but it's really incredible when you pull it off. So even though both of these things are carried over to this game, Octopath Traveler 2 throws in a new ruffle called latent powers. These are abilities that utilize the latent gauge, a meter that fills as you take damage or break adversaries. When it's completely full, a traveler can use a powerful ability that's completely unique to them. For instance, Orket can do mass damage by harnessing the power of animal instincts. Temenos can lower a foe's shield points with any attack, and Throne can act twice in a single turn. All these latent powers have a completely different function, and as I played through it, I really thought they all made the combat more dynamic. Now we also need to talk about the new day-night cycle and how it affects things. Unlike in the first game, each traveler has 2 different path actions in this one that allow them to interact with others. One that only functions during the day and the other at night. For example, Hikari can challenge townspeople to duels during the day and bribe them for useful information at night. In the daytime, Agnia can use a lure to bring the support of commoners into battle, and entreat them at nighttime to obtain items. The merchant Particio can purchase the belongings of townspeople in daytime, and hire them at nighttime to join him on his adventure. In the daytime, Oswald can scrutinize NPCs to gain important information, and mug them at nighttime to seize their belongings in battle. All these path actions are woven into the story too, so you'll definitely be using them to progress. We always knew they'd be here in some form anyway, and I found them to be pretty fun. Having both day and night path actions just added a little more depth to each character. What's really cool too is that you can easily switch between day and night through a button, so you can toggle this at will. Whether it's day or night actually changes some other things too. For example, you'll actually fight different enemies depending on the time, with more powerful creatures coming out at night. Also, the ability to view some events is also dependent on whether it is day or night. So I have to say it really seems like the day-night system was integrated into the gameplay in several different creative ways. It also made the various environments fresh, because you weren't just viewing them in the same way every time you saw them. I just have to give this aspect some props because I wish more titles used this kind of feature. Everyone who played the first Octopath Traveler knew that each character had their own clear-cut permanent job, but Octopath Traveler 2 gives each of them the ability to adopt a second one as well. Adding a secondary job grants several benefits, including the ability to equip the weapons of both jobs. Now I'd say that's cool enough as it is, but they also allow you to learn some of that secondary job's skills. For instance, you could have the warrior Hikari obtain healing skills, or give the dancer Agnia the ability to use hunter attacks. Temenos could use axes, and Oswald could use swords. The combinations are virtually endless. To unlock secondary jobs, you have to seek out skill guilds throughout the world and complete side quests for licenses. You can learn skills in any order you choose by spending job points. When you learn enough, you can also unlock support skills, which are passive bonuses. You can only equip 4 of these at a time, but they really allow you to increase the usefulness of your travelers and customize them for the role you want them to play. There are also some secret, all-new advanced secondary jobs that aren't represented by any of the characters, and those are probably the aspect of the game I'm most looking forward to exploring. I think almost everyone that plays this will be struck by the soundtrack right away. It's immersive, complex, and a real joy to listen to. It brings back Yasunori Nishiki, who composed the score for the first game as well. The main theme from that one seems to be back here, as well as the battle theme, but everything else seems to be completely new. And this means new themes for each of the new travelers, all of which are totally distinct. For instance, Hikari's is in a classical style, and his kinda reminds me of battles that took place in the ancient past, so it's perfect for his chapter. In contrast, Particcio's theme uses jazz guitars and saxophones, and has a totally different vibe that fits his Western themed story well. Throne's track features vivid string instruments and captures the passion of her inner conflict, and Oswald's is filled with the sorrow his character must be going through. It just seems like every track is appropriately matched with scenes in the game, and the emotional quality really shines through. So does Octopath Traveler 2 weave all the characters together into a single, united storyline narrative? Well, not really. Even though the developers made conscious strides to create some conversation scenes between the characters, this is still a game that's much more about the characters themselves and their individual arcs. That might not be a good thing for some people, but it is for me because I think it still works for the style of game this is. If you're stuck trying to decide which character's story to choose, I recommend Oswald's. His scenario is filled with sadness, depravity, and a compelling quest for retribution that I really found interesting. The whole thing has a Shawshank Redemption vibe to it, and I think that's pretty awesome. Do you guys agree with me on this? If not, let me know whose story you're enjoying the most in the comments. When it comes down to it though, Octopath Traveler 2 rules. There's no better way to say it than that. The visual quality, gameplay, and soundtrack is totally up to par, and the nuts and bolts of the game are just about perfect. Some of the new gameplay mechanics, especially the latent powers, secondary jobs, and day-night path action cycles were all new features that worked well and were fun to utilize. So yes, Octopath Traveler 2 was indeed the sequel you were looking for. As far as I see it, it's a can't-miss game for enthusiasts of the genre and the HD 2D style. It really has the potential to beat out Triangle Strategy and become my favorite RPG on the Switch, and I think it's totally worth buying. So what do you think about Octopath Traveler 2? Is it better than the original? And who's your favorite traveler in it? Let me know in the comments below. Please like, subscribe, and click that bell below for more retro gaming content. If you want early access to the videos I produce and other perks, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a Patreon patron or via the YouTube Join feature.